Good morning, everyone. Here we are again with more Sebastian Rogers news. Good morning, good early morning for most of you. Good evening for those down under. Hope you're all doing well. Getting a few people in here now. I don't know what's up with YouTube at the moment. It's not giving like an accurate number of views, like people watching the stream. But I don't know. It's glitching all over the place. But we shall endeavour to carry on. Might as well carry on doing these live streams, given that I've paid for a month's subscription on StreamYard. It's interesting. StreamYard gives you 20 free hours streaming a month, but if you get through that, then you have to pay $25. So yeah, you get some additional features and stuff, but the only additional feature that's of any way useful to me is I get to do a custom background. So I don't think I'll be carrying on with this subscription. I don't think it's worth it. Anyhow, I digress. What we're going to talk about today is the latest in the search, because there are people actually out there searching right now for Sebastian in a coordinated way, and you know, we got to applaud those people. So we're going to talk about that first. Also, I want to go through some of Jennifer Coffendaffer's appearance on the Pascal show from last night. Now, I'm not Jennifer Coffendaffer's greatest fan, I have to tell you. I totally disagree with her views on a lot of things. I think she goes on like News Nation and things like that, and sometimes she doesn't have anything to add. Yes, she's an ex-FBI agent, but I think she's considered an expert on stuff that she's not actually an expert in. But her appearance on the Pascal show was interesting, so I want to play some of that and comment on it. So I'm going to say a few hellos, give people a chance to come in. I have remembered to share this on social media today, so that'll be good. That'll be good. All right. It's not letting me. Oh, there we go. I was going to say it's not letting me scroll up, but it just has done. Hello, Angie baby. Hello, sick and tired. Oh, aren't we all? Aren't we all sick and tired? Dallas, Holly, good morning, y'all. Sirius Black from Kentucky at 6:20 a.m. Well, it's 11:34 a.m. here in the UK, and it's cold. The spring has sprung away. The spring has just gone, and we're back to rain and overcast skies, and it's all very depressing. 2 mornings in a row I got wet through going for a walk. I thought we'd seen the last of the rain, but no, clearly not. Then again, I live in England, so yeah. Hello, Blue Willow, 6:25 in Florida. CW, hello. I bet it's raining where you are as well. Actually, the rain has stopped now, but it was raining hard this morning. My front yard's, like my front lawn's flooded again. Great. Woo. 2 Arctic Wolves, Glitter Paws, Down Under with Love, good evening. Fly on the Wall, True Rush, Deborah. I can't even begin to say your name. I don't know where to put the emphasis. Tunderps. Is that it? Jewel, Kate from the land down under. Good evening to you. Dana, Shaker Maker. So used to these morning lives. I know, kind of so have I. But they're not here to stay permanently. I actually prefer doing live streams in the evening. And I am going to be back this evening as well. I want to do a Delphi live, going through the motion to Judge Frances Gull to recuse herself. So I will be back later, maybe about, I've got to go out, so when I come back, maybe about 6 p.m. my time. Between 6 and 7 p.m. I'll schedule it for my time. So that'll be later. Hello, Flicking Bollocks, Zanane, Ali, Gaveldoll, Ben, hello, Mythical, Heather Feather. There used to be an ASMR person that I used to watch years ago called Heather Feather. I don't know whether it's you or whether you're a different Heather Feather. Hello, Jean. Insanity Mom. Purple AJ. Hello, hello, Susan. What else have we got? Ginger Girl. Yeah. I know. It was weird. It wasn't true. I don't know how many people were actually in, but 20 wasn't true. True Crime and DIY Fails. That's great. What a great name. I've got plenty of DIY fails that I could film, but I'm not going to. Renee. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Oh, Jackie. Someone yesterday informed us of a guy called Bryn who went missing and was found 14 months later. He was yards from his home. Is that possibly me that informed you of that? Because I've been talking about Bryn Hargreaves for many months. Many months. So if it wasn't me that informed you of it, then someone has possibly got that information from me. Bryn Hargreaves. Let's talk about Bryn Hargreaves. So he comes from my neck of the woods, actually, from the Wigan area. But he relocated, having met a woman, to West Virginia, where he got married. And then his relationship broke down and he became depressed and his family were concerned about him. But he wanted to stay in West Virginia. He had a good job. But they were concerned about him. He had an injury. He was having seizures. There was a lot of things going on in his life. Anyway, one day, he just completely disappeared. Totally, and just disappeared off the face of the earth. What was really strange was he'd left his shower running and his door unlocked. It was weird. And yes, absolutely, he was missing for 14 months. The first time I talked about Bryn Hargreaves was a year ago. I did him as one of my Crime Stories Sunday over on Michelle Walks. So I did his story. He was still missing at that time. And then very soon after I did that Crime Story Sunday, he was actually found. Human remains have been found. So I did a quick update. It was like a week after I'd done that video. Human remains have been found. That have been identified as Bryn, 300 yards away from his home. 300 yards away from his home. He lived in these posh apartments, and there was some woodland like across from these apartments. And I got my hands on the search maps. And I showed those in a video. Where is it? There it is. Circumstances of Bryn Hargreaves leave shocking questions. And the family, the police weren't that interested. I've got to tell you, they weren't that helpful. But the family, Bryn's family, had PIs, they got search teams, and everybody missed him. And he was found down like a small ravine in the woods. And there was questions about why on earth he was missed. Because those woods had been searched again and again. So that, let's move back a minute. That is one of the search maps. And the red is dog searches. And I can't remember the exact spot it was found. It was somewhere in here. Somewhere, but it was very close. Very, very close, like 300 yards as the crow flies from his front door. And everybody had missed him. The dogs were getting hits on a lake just on the other side of the woods. These are all dog hits that had been plotted. I don't know what the yellow stands for. And the reason why the dogs were hitting on this pond, because they searched this lake like numerous times, thinking, well, all these dogs are alerting. You can't see anything. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. See it now, can't you? You can see it now. All right. So this is the search map that I was just talking about here. It's found somewhere. I think it was somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact spot where he was found, but all this red here is all dog searches, and then on this lake, which is on the other side of the woods, like it's not a lot of woodland. It's like a patch, like a stretch of woodland. And then on the other side, there's this lake. So those are all the dog searches. And they were convinced that he was in the lake because of all these dog hits, cadaver dogs. And yeah, he wasn't in the lake. He was in the woods. And they think what was confusing the dogs was that sewage, like treated sewage, was being pumped into this lake, which I find disgusting, but that's what happens. And they were alerting to this kind of congregation of scents that had come from the sewage. So yeah, it's a lesson for everybody. So yeah, did that. When was it? I think it was February last year. So he'd gone missing. He'd gone missing in January of 2022. The remains were found in February. And I think the identification was like early March, if I remember rightly. But it was nearly 14 months that he'd been missing. So he was missing when I did that Crime Story Sunday. A week later, the news came out that it was him. And then I got the search maps and stuff and did an update there. And I have talked about him numerous times because he's a lesson. He's a lesson to everyone who thinks that just because one area has been searched, that they're not there. Because there's so many reasons why people get missed. And I think he was missed because nobody could get down into this ravine. It wasn't even a big ravine. It was hunters that found him. And they just came upon him accidentally. This dude, Jonathan Ainscore, he was missing for ages in my area. He was like only a few miles away from where I live. And I didn't know about him, actually, until his body was found. It was like, what? I didn't even know about this guy. And his body was found on a road, like a country road. And he'd been there ages. It's weird. It's weird how people get missed. Totally weird. So thank you, Jackie, for bringing Bryn up. But yeah, it's me that keeps banging on about Bryn Hargreaves. So if you've heard it from somebody else other than me, then I'm glad that the story of Bryn Hargreaves is making it round people, because it's a story that everybody should know about. And I think that will be a good, testament to Bryn, who led there for 14 months without being found, that, if his story can inform people not to give up, if you're searching, if you're somebody who's missing a loved one, or you're a part of a search team, then please don't think that because one area has been searched. This is why I bang on about, I want people in relation to Sebastian, I want them to keep looking in those woods in the north, because that's the obvious place where he is. So he worked in Wigan. I live near Wigan. My family are from Wigan. Anyway, let's share some search details. Oh, wow. There you go, you see. Boy in my class thought he could swim across a small area of our quarry. They searched and searched for him. He ended up being a few feet from the edge, but it took a while. Yeah, it does. Water searches are notoriously bad. Notoriously bad. So do I. I've come to the conclusion that Summer Wells was missed. Sewage can. It's something else that I talk about a lot. Sewage, like a collection, like where sewage, like say sewage is pumped into a waterway, or if there's a leak in a sewage pipe and the sewage kind of scent builds up, then yes, it can confuse dogs, because in human sewage, in human waste products, there are small amounts of cadaverine and putrescine and the other scents that make up the death scent. That's what cadaver dogs are trained on. It's the scent of death. It's actually the molecules, cadaverine and putrescine, that the dogs are scenting on. And living bodies, like, release waste, obviously, and within that waste there are small amounts of those compounds. So just like human feces, that's not going to be sufficient. Like someone poos in the woods, the dog might show a tiny amount of interest in it, but that's not strong enough. It's when there's, you know, a collection of sewage, like a leak or something like that. Yes, absolutely, that can confuse dogs. It depends. It depends what's in that pond mud. If you got, I did a video on this recently, just a speculation that if you got absolutely covered in mud and then carried on walking, scent particles from his skin wouldn't be released, like in the same quantity as you would be, because your skin was covered, at least for a small amount of time. So that could have been enough to throw off the dogs. That's just a speculation. All right. Okay, so I'm going to share some search details here. And let's start with Chloe. Hold on. Let me find the right screen here. There we go. There we go. So this I shared in my Facebook group yesterday. This is from Chloe, who was the PI for Seth until she got fired. She's still out there searching. So even though she's no longer... So if you go to the toilet, it smells like someone died. It's true. Yes. You may well be picking up, if you've got a very keen sense of smell, you may well be picking up. Because cadaverine and putrescine, they're released when protein breaks down. So people who eat very high protein diets are going to be releasing more of those molecules, because your body doesn't need a great deal of protein if you're just an adult. And even if you're like a bodybuilder or something, you only need a tiny bit more protein than the average. People eat way too much protein, and it's a task for your body to break it down, especially animal protein. All right, so Chloe was fired by Seth, but she's still continuing her mission to find Sebastian. So this is what Chloe said. Apparently, I've upset some people on the interwebs, not local or connected to this case, by not sharing our exact locations of search. This grievance is apparently caused by the interweb dwellers believing I am fluttering around random woods with no direction. This is not the case. We've listened to law enforcement, search and rescue techs, and used the original EMA maps to formulate points of execution in our searches. I'm happy to share the maps with those who are boots on the ground, reliable, and here for the right reasons. We began clearing a 20-plus acre property today, got a lot covered. I can't thank the local community enough for allowing us to search your private properties. So Chloe, even though she's no longer Seth's PI, her and her team, and Seth was annoyed because when he fired Chloe, all the searchers left as well, because they were people that, you know, Chloe had got together. It was her team. So she's carrying on her mission to find Sebastian, and they're getting assistance from the local community who is allowing them to search private properties. So we don't know where they're searching, and we don't need to know where they're searching. You know, they want to do this in private. They don't want people on looking live streaming and stuff. So they are out there. So when people are saying there's no one searching for Sebastian, and when Seth and Tony are coming on people's, live streams, and Tony is doing his rounds on TikTok with all of his phony BS, saying, oh, we're waiting for this search to arrive and this search to arrive. Well, actually, there really are people out there doing the best thing for Sebastian. Why did he fire her? He did say because she was searching. This is the excuse he gave. She was out there searching, but he wanted her to be a PI, but she was searching. She was out there, boots on the ground. Well, that is part of what PIs do. If someone's missing and you believe that they're out there somewhere, the best thing for a PI to do is formulate a plan, get people together and coordinate searches in areas where they are most likely to be. So she's doing exactly the right thing. That was what she should have been doing. It was on Smiley's channel. I think it was that rant he did on Smiley's channel where he said that. It's insane. It's absolute insanity. Whereas, you know, he's believing these phony people, phony Tony and Crabtree, who did. I read. I didn't read. I watched a Facebook Live that someone shared in my group from Steve Crabtree feeling all sorry for himself. Obviously, because he's getting some kind of backlash for being involved with phony Tony. But, you know, Tony is dragging everybody down. It's making Seth look bad. It's basically stopped the search from Seth's point of view. Seth's involvement in the searching. Chloe's gone ahead and organised her own searches as she was doing when Seth fired her for doing exactly the right thing. And he's believing Tony. I can't fathom why he's believing somebody who has now, said that Sebastian was seen on the 26th, possibly getting into a car, abducted by an unknown vehicle because of this random Twitter account, which is fake, and then saying that Sebastian was in contact with his maternal grandma, which he hasn't been. And law enforcement have come out and denied all of those things. So that brings me on to the latest from Nick Berris. So Nick Berris is in contact with law enforcement. He has contact with some of the county sheriffs. The Amber Alert says he was last seen on the 26th. So there's that. Okay. He also gives an inaccurate description of him, but there's also that. Because Amber Alerts are often inaccurate. Only in like small ways, but they are. All right, so Nick Berry said 19 hours ago, 3 months and still nothing as rumours continue to run rampant. I appreciate the fact that so many of you continue to show interest in the Sebastian Rogers case and you message me with questions. 15-year-old autistic boy has been missing for nearly 3 months from his Hendersonville TN home. Vanished and not a trace found despite massive search efforts. Authorities say there's no evidence of foul play, though they have not ruled it out. In the absence of any new developments, armchair detectives on social media and podcasts continue to create their own fiction. So some of these words are the same as his last message, but it gets different and new as it goes down. Alleged sightings, new security video, items of Sebastian's clothing found, new evidence of the teen on social media. Now, I haven't heard these. So alleged sightings I've heard about. That's been debunked already. New security video. I hadn't heard about that. Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, that was all in the same thing, wasn't it? Items of Sebastian's clothing found. So we know about the pants and the glasses. I don't know if there's any more clothing been found that people thought was Sebastian's. But they've been confirmed as not Sebastian's. New evidence the teen was on social media. Now, that's a new one. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that rumour that Sebastian had been on social media. Presumably, after he was missing? I don't know. All false. I checked again today, and investigators say there is nothing new to report. So everything that Phony Tony is saying is not true. Everything that he's been saying is not true. I've been in direct contact with the lead investigator with the Sumner County Sheriff's Office, who says this latest stuff is all garbage. Everyone is frustrated to the point of some calling for the FBI to take over the investigation. Those calling for that do not know how the system works. First of all, the Sumner County Sheriff and TBI have both already involved the FBI. Second, the FBI does not typically take over state cases because state and local law enforcement agencies are not subordinate to federal law enforcement agencies. However, the FBI will become involved in a local investigation if the offence falls under federal jurisdiction or the crime is committed on federal property. Neither of these is the case. Local law enforcement or the DA can also request the FBI take over, but that has not happened because they don't need him, the FBI. As I said yesterday, as I kept saying yesterday in my live stream, there's no reason for the FBI to take over the case. There's no reason whatsoever, because it wouldn't matter, even if the FBI was the lead agency, it wouldn't matter. It'd still be the same number of tips and the same number of tips that were cleared as not relevant. The FBI can't invent tips. The FBI can't find Sebastian if the tips that lead them to him are not there. It doesn't matter. It does not matter who the lead agency is. And everything that can be done is being done. So the DA, General Whitley, tells me it will not happen. So he's even got a quote from the DA. I've seen firsthand the work on this case by local authorities, and they are covering all bases. Some complain local investigators don't immediately respond to calls of possible evidence found by the public. Well, Seth's complained about that. Let's be clear. It was Seth speaking to the news. I played the clip yesterday in my live stream that's been complaining that local investigators don't respond to calls. Well, they're not going to respond to calls. They're not going to respond. They're not going to reply to every single person who calls in a tip. The manpower that would involve is ridiculous when they can use their resources, finite as they are, in a way to benefit Sebastian. Calling back people just to say thank you for the tip isn't something that they do. They're only going to call people who've given in a tip if they need more information, if they're following it up. But if they clear it or, deem it not relevant without the need to call that person back, then they're not going to call that person back. Why would they? People just assume that they're the most important person in the world, and if they've given in a tip, they expect to be, informed of what came of it. No, it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. Yeah, people want validation. That's a good way to describe it, and that's not how it works. They've received hundreds of tips, and many are easily dismissed simply because there's no credible connection. Just more social media-driven rumours. Yeah, I saw it in my tea leaves this morning. He's in such a place. Oh, I saw a psychic who apparently solved the Daybell case. She flaming well didn't. She said he's somewhere. Come on now. And it's not as though the FBI taking over will suddenly produce a bunch of new leads. Exactly. He said everything that I said yesterday. He said everything that I said yesterday. Hopefully, there will be a credible break in the case soon. Until then, please be very skeptical of stunning new developments unless they come from a credible official source, not phony Tony on TikTok or any of his comrades. And I could have used a harsh word there, but I didn't. Call tips to 1-800-TBI-FIND and please share. So I'm sharing. I share when Nick Barris has an update from law enforcement. I always share them. All right, this is who we're actually talking about. Yeah, my spirit box says he's up a tree. Yeah, I wonder what my spirit box would say if I turned it on. It'd probably tell you to all piss off, all you idiots. So this is who we're talking about, but we are going to look at the Pascal show and Jennifer Coffindaffer in a minute. She talked about the FBI. There's some interesting comments that she made, not all of which I agree with, but some of which I do. So credit where credit's due. Don't often agree with Jennifer, but in the main, this time I did. But she's not fully informed. She's not fully informed. This is the problem I have with Jennifer Coffindaffer. She's not fully informed. She pretends she is, and she isn't. So the stuff she said that has been cleared, the stuff that she said has been the information's out there as to why, but we'll get there. All right, but let's not forget, this is who we are talking about. Sebastian Rogers, 15-year-old white male, brown hair, brown eyes, 5'5", just under 120 pounds. He was last seen by his mother late on February 25th, and it was reported the 911 call came in, according to the dispatch audio, at 6:33 a.m. on the 26th of February. He was last seen in the area, actually at his home in Stafford Court, Hendersonville, Sumner County in Tennessee. Last seen wearing by his mother a black sweatshirt with a motif on it of some kind, like Minecraft or something like that. Black sweatpants with a white Adidas style stripe, and he always wears his glasses. He does have autism and a condition called 6q27 chromosomal deletion syndrome, which does make him a vulnerable person. If you've seen him or have any credible information, not from TikTok Tony, please contact the Sumner County Emergency Communications Centre at 615-451-3838 or the TBI at 1-800-TBI-FIND. Okay, so this happened 16 hours ago. I'm sure that some of you will have watched this. This is one of the ones I actually got to watch live. Pascal tends to do early streams. So, like, they're early evening for me, so they must be earlier for him. Most live streams, I'm replay crew, because most of them happen like in the night time. I don't know if anything has been said in the night time that's worthy of looking at, because I haven't watched any live streams this morning. I haven't even looked. There's still a case that Katie hid Sebastian from Seth. Why would she, though? Why would she? I don't understand the motivation for her doing that. Like, why would you criminalize yourself in such a way? Like, if she didn't want Seth to have him, like, let's say, you know, the arrangement that they had, and she didn't want it to happen, well, she could go to court and get primary custody. And I'm sure she would get primary custody because she's in a more secure position than Seth. So the fact that he was going to go and live with Seth, if Katie didn't want it, she could have stopped it without criminalizing herself. I don't understand that line of thinking. And I know a lot of people think that, because everybody is hanging on by their fingernails trying to blame Katie for something. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Exactly. Why would you condemn your son to a life of seclusion and secrecy unless she had valid concerns? But if she had concerns that you know, Seth was going to abuse Sebastian if he went to live with him, then they could just go to court and change the court order. Like, at the moment, the court order about custody is that it's shared custody, but the amount of time Sebastian spends at each home can be determined by them. Like, the court hasn't decreed like who gets so many hours, so they can change where Sebastian lives for most of the time if they feel like it. But if Katie felt concerned about Sebastian living with Seth or even staying with Seth, then she could collect the evidence and take that evidence to court and fight for primary custodian. So I just don't get it. All right, so this is the Pascal show. The link to this is already in the chat, in the description box for replay viewers, and I will pop it in the chat right now. If you want to go and watch this without my commentary, you are very welcome to do so. That's entirely up to you. I did find it interesting. So we're going to start at about the 9.5 minute mark, and I want to play. Let's see how far we get, because I've got a lot of comments. So we might not get very far through it. Very far through it? No, that's wrong. Yeah, we might not get very far. I do have to go out this afternoon, so I do have a finite amount of time. Any more future searches by Ellie? Not that they've reported, but they won't report. They'll just turn up like they did last time when they did that additional 2-day search. They just turn up. They don't tell you. They don't inform you. So we don't know if they've got anything planned. I bet that they'll come back and do another search of that same area in the fall, if he's not been found by then. Because of the amount of foliage at the moment, it's very difficult terrain to search through. And also it's very hot at the moment. I've got this from Julia. Julia, the canine handler. You know, the one who's been very controversial. I don't think she's meant to be, but she got lumped in with that fake dog handler. Do you remember? We just discussed all of that last week. And Julie got lumped in with it all. But she's genuine. And she's in Tennessee right now searching. I don't know whether she's part of Chloe's team or whether she's a part of a separate team or whether she's searching on her own. I have no idea. But she does have a Twitter account. It's called The Canine Captain, US Army veteran, patriot, pure blood, military police, mother of canines, freedom fighter, 2A. I don't know what 2A stands for. And she's there in Tennessee, and it's very hot, and it's actually too hot for her dogs. So she's put here, this is 13 hours ago, there comes a point in time as a canine handler when you know to call it for the day or even delay your start. This 80-degree plus temperature with 87-degree humidity is for the birds. Actually, not even the birds. I would rather search in the cool hours of the evening, even with this rain rolling in, than risk my canines getting heat stroke. Canine Aura says hello to all of those who have been so kind and supportive. So that's Canine Aura. So she's a cadaver dog. So yeah, 80-degree plus, having dogs running about, like the intensity that they're in, like the state of mind they're in when they're searching. Yeah, that's too hot for them. So searching in the early morning and in the evening, I think probably would be the only safe way to do that for a dog. But so she's out there as well. So there's Chloe and her team out there, and there's Julia. Don't know whether she's part of the same team. That's right. She's from Pennsylvania. They're not used to the Tennessee weather. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Why is she there if it's too hot to search? Because it won't be too hot in the very early morning and the evening. It's only like the heat of the day. So in my country, yeah, as soon as it hits 70 degrees, there's like these well-meaning people all over the internet saying, don't take your dog out, and take your dog out before 9 a.m. and then after 6 p.m. But my dogs, actually, Tilly and Noodle are fine. Tilly and Noodle seem to be able to handle the heat. They don't care. But Cassie really suffers. Like she really does. She gets very hot very quickly. She's very sensitive to temperature because she's so intense. Like when she's out, she's so intense. So the body heat that she must generate, you know, like Tilly just like plods along. You know, she doesn't run unless she particularly wants to. But Cassie's everywhere. Cassie's all over the place. And if a dog is searching, then it's got that same level of intensity that Cassie has. So the heat, even for a dog that's used to it, when they're doing that kind of intense brain work, then it's not good for them. Certainly for any length of time. So for Julia, then searching in the evening would be fine, because you know you've got several hours of daylight from like, let's say 5 or 6 p.m. when it gets cooler into the evening. You've got several hours of daylight, and you can't run a dog for hours and hours and hours on end without giving them a break. You don't see much searching going on. Well, there is, actually. If you listen to Seth and Phony Tony, you might not think that there's any searching going on, but there actually is. So I'll go back to Chloe's post for those of you who've just come in, and she's out there, boots on the ground. She's out there. Apparently, I've upset some people on the interwebs, not local or connected to the case, by not showing our exact location of search. This grievance is apparently caused by the interweb dwellers believing I am fluttering around random woods with no direction. This is not the case. We've listened to law enforcement, search and rescue techs, and used the original EMA maps to formulate points of execution in our searches. I am happy to share maps with those who are boots on the ground, reliable, and here for the right reasons. We began clearing a 20-acre plus property today. So this was posted yesterday. Got a lot covered. I can't thank the local community enough for allowing us to search your private properties. So there absolutely is. Chloe's team are out there, even though she's been fired. She's continuing the mission to search for Sebastian. And that's Chloe on Facebook. And then we've got Julia on Twitter, who has been out there. She had to call it a day yesterday until the evening because it was too hot for her dogs. So there is searching going on, day in, day out. Don't listen to what Seth and Phony Tony are telling you. They are giving you deliberate misinformation. They know full well there are people out there. They know full well. They know full well. Just because they want to wait for this Nina person to come from Texas, so that they can begin their search next week, while firing the team who was actually out there. It's insane. Insane. Thank you, Purple AJ, for gifting 5 memberships. You once again are so kind. Who's got these? Aussie Lana. Oops, jumped here. Aussie Lana, Daniel, Turtle Madness, Fly on the Wall, and Snark. Great name. Thank you so much, Purple AJ. You are a superstar. So you guys get a month's free memberships. There's over 50 members videos now. Some of them are funny, some of them are bloopers. All right, so without further ado, let's see how far we can get through this. We're not going to be able to get very far, I don't think, because I have got some comments. I've got some comments. Nina is just going to be giving out more misinformation. Honestly, I'm not listening to anything Seth says at the moment. While he's involved with these phony people, whatever Seth says now, I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt. And anything Phony Tony says, I'm automatically not going to believe it. Even if at some point he actually gives us a grain of truth, I'm not going to believe it, because he's admitted that he's getting his information from TikTok. And then he moved up a notch and got some information from Twitter. It's no. Let's listen to the people who are actually there on the ground, sweating, getting spiked with brambles and whatever else is out there, avoiding snakes. Those people I'm going to listen to. Those people I'm going to publicize. Those people I have faith in. So what can you do? Twitter is up a notch from TikTok. I guess so. I mean, not that there isn't a bunch of misinformation on Twitter, but at least you get some reliable information from Twitter. Ticks as well, yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of reliable information from Twitter. I just ignore all the numpties on there. Whereas on TikTok, it seems to be like 95% of the people on there are numpties. Yeah, I think that's why the case is so draining. Exactly. It's draining. It's draining. It drains your faith in humanity. It's worse than Summer Wells. Way worse than Summer Wells. Given that this case is not even 3 months old yet, and it's a crap show. It's an absolute circus. Circus. Anyhow, Pascal's show. This was an interesting interview. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you go and watch it. Link again, I'm going to put in the chat. Fair use and all that. I've got lots of comments. So we're going to start off at 9.5 minutes. And this is Pascal asking Jennifer about the FBI. Are they able to get involved? Are they able to take over the case? So Jennifer is an ex-FBI agent. I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff. I certainly don't agree with her views on the Karen Reid case. We're on complete polar opposites in that case. Anyhow, this was interesting. Just one person just needs to give me a heads up that the sound is okay.
And FBI is working alongside TBI, but they're not spearheading this. So I'm wondering, how can this case ever get led by FBI?
It's such a great question, Pascal, and certainly a question that is asked oftentimes on other missing cases. And the answer can be a little bit complex, yet simple. The simplest way for the FBI to take the reins on a case like this could only be if they are asked to by the local or state department. Then you have to combine that with what would be the statute that the FBI would be investigating. So right now, we don't have any confirmation of a kidnapping, and we don't have any confirmation of any sort of interstate travel to commit a murder or other crime. So right now, the FBI's hands are really tied, and they will not, I believe, take any reins on this case anytime soon.
Yeah, because there's no crime. They're not investigating a crime. The FBI don't get involved in missing child cases. They don't get involved in, like, there's thousands and thousands of missing child cases. They offer their services for specific reasons. Like the FBI have been involved in terms of, the technical aspects, as of the Secret Service, like the tech and stuff like that. They've got more resources than local agencies. But unless there's a very specific reason or a certain type of crime that leads them interstate, it's not the remit of the FBI. So they're not going to take this case. They are absolutely not going to take this case. Thank you, Olden One in MT, for gifting a membership. That's very kind of you. And it's Nest Peeper who's got it. So welcome, Nest Peeper, and thank you so much, Olden. You're so kind. The FBI are there as an additional resource. They're there to offer expertise. They're there to offer technical support. They're there to coordinate things like landfill searches and stuff that's, complex. But they're not there to take over in a missing child's case. It's not their remit. It's not their job. It's not going to happen. So, the card team is part of the FBI. They came in at the very beginning of Summer's case. They did. The card team, child abduction, what's it stand for? Child abduction, something. I can't remember. But yeah, they're a facility within the FBI, specially trained agents who look at a case for the possibility that it was an abduction. So yeah, they came in Summer's case. They still would be there if there was, definite evidence that Summer was abducted. They would be there on tap to offer their expertise. They would be there if it looked like, you know, the direction in Sebastian's case was moving towards abduction, which it isn't. There's no sign of any form of foul play. There's no sign at all of an abduction. So the card team don't have anything to investigate in Sebastian's case, but they would be there. They'd be there in a shot if it looked like there was an abduction, and they're there in an advisory capacity, not there to lead the case.
Okay, that's not really great to hear. I'm going to be honest, Jennifer. You know, I know, and you're not. It's not your fault for giving us the bad news. Okay,
I don't even see how is it bad news. You see, this is the thing. I don't see why people think that if the FBI took over, they'd be able to solve this case any more than the TBI or even the local sheriff would. If the tips aren't there, the FBI can't generate them. I don't see it as bad news. I actually see it as good news. I see it as good news because it actually leads me to believe that Sebastian has not been abducted. He's not been murdered. And he's out there somewhere, but he's not a victim of a crime. So actually, for me, it sounds like good news. Thank you. Child abduction, rapid. Child abduction, rapid. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up. Child team. FBI. There we go. Child abduction rapid deployment team. It's deployment. The D is deployment. Child abduction rapid deployment. Yeah, so they're there. They're at like a team that's ready to go. Like they jump into action whenever they're needed. Like they swoop down, you know, and offer their services. So they would be there in a shot if it looked like Sebastian had been abducted, which it doesn't. So their services aren't needed. And that's good news. I don't understand why people are jumping up and down wanting the FBI to take over. The FBI can't do anything. And it's good news. I'd be really concerned for Sebastian if the FBI suddenly swooped in. That would signify to me that, oh, something really bad's happened.
Okay, but it's not great to hear that that there would have to be much more, I don't know, movement happening in, you know, to show some sort of foul play or some sort of abduction or something of that sort for FBI to get involved.
Exactly, and that's good news. Surely, it's good news that that's not what we're looking at here, because it means that Sebastian could actually be out there living his life. It's weird. It happens, though. And later in, I don't think we're going to maybe get this far into the interview before I need to call it to go out. But Jennifer gave an example of an autistic kid who went missing. I think she said he was 17. And he was found 2 years later. Somebody recognized him 2 years later. And he'd run away. And he'd been fending for himself. He was homeless, and somebody recognized him, and he wasn't too far away from home. It does happen. So the fact that there's no evidence of a crime is good news. Sebastian could be out there living somewhere. It's perfectly possible. Is it probable? Probably not, no. But it's very well possible because it happens. Look at the thousands of kids run away every year all over the world. Most of them do not die. Most of them don't die. Some of them get themselves into very bad situations like prostitution and drugs and stuff like that so that they can, you know, eat. But they're living. What was the referral to Seb on social media earlier? Did I hear right? I hope it means of additional information. Ali, I'm not sure what you're referring to here. What was the referral to Seb on social media earlier? Did I hear right? I hope it means of additional information. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific than that. I'm afraid. Social media is a big place. Can he do that without his medicine? I think so. He wasn't on any meds that were, life altering if he didn't take them. It was ADHD medication and sleep medication. So neither of those are signifying somebody who needs medication to survive. It's not like he's diabetic or epileptic, where his life would be in danger potentially if he didn't take that medication. No, Devil Doll. I've talked about the cameras so many times now. So many times. I did a whole live stream a couple of days ago and focused on the cameras and measured the cameras, like the distance away from the road. So if anybody wants to go back, and I've got a couple of videos that are, short watches about cameras and the distance from the road, and that live stream that I did the other day, it was very detailed. So please go and check those out. I can rewind and try and find the timestamp. What channel was it on? That would work. I don't know what it's referring to. Someone made a comment that Sebastian isn't going to be found on social media. Well, no, he's not going to be found on social media. Unless he was making himself known on social media and it was proven that it was genuinely him, then no, he's not going to be found on social media, is he? A young man showed up homeless wanting to work. He was a drug addict, looked just like a missing guy. I called him by that guy's name and said his mother was looking for him. Kind of laughed, then he quit. Okay, that's interesting. But there's thousands of kids who run away. Sometimes it's from abusive situations. Sometimes it's, overbearing parents, whatever. They run away and they fend for themselves. And some of them actually do just fine. Many of them, though, end up on drugs, in prostitution rings, all sorts of things. So it's imperative that he's found. It's imperative that he's not in that kind of scenario. But if that's his choice, then that's his choice. Kudos on the camera video. Thank you. Okay.
So then I guess I'm curious. You've been following this case. You've been following the investigation for the most part. Where do you think we're at right now in regards to this case?
It's such a great question because
everything's just a great question to Jennifer. It annoys me when she says that. She says it all the time. So is it that every single question is great? Danielle, happy birthday.
Unfortunately, the parental units that are involved in this case, Katie Proudfoot, who reported her son missing, Chris Proudfoot, even Seth Proudfoot, Seth Rogers, there's been so much drama and emotion in this case, and it's really detracted from being able to find truth, I believe. All we know, certainly.
She's not wrong there. She's not wrong there. But sadly, even the father is now involved in this nonsense spreading, which I find really sad. Because I really like Seth at first. And now he's just got involved in all of this shit. I'm annoyed with him. I'm completely annoyed with him. That's right, Granny's watching. Oh, I've been watching your channel. You've got some really good opinions. Jennifer is in her own little world. That's true. She absolutely is. She absolutely is.
Is that he was seen at that Roadhouse restaurant. That has been proof of life that we know that's independent from the parents. We've also heard so much information regarding CPS reports and allegations of abuse. I actually posted something from a neighbor that was actually horrific.
Oh dear, Jennifer. This is what I mean about Jennifer. She says some stuff that, yeah, right on. But then she goes down. She believes everything she sees on social media. It's so strange for somebody who was an FBI agent. Right, we know that that neighbor who supposedly came out was a fake. It wasn't actually a neighbor. But she's believed it hook, line, and sinker. I mean, at first, we, I certainly said, could this be a neighbor? Yeah. But then some of the stuff that neighbor came out with about Sebastian being forced to live in the garage, that was over egging the pudding. There's no way that a neighbor would know that. It over-egged the pudding. And anyway, it subsequently came out. Not a real neighbor. Just a Looney Tune. So she's believed it. Nice one.
And that makes everyone wonder if the parents could be involved. That, of course, combined with a lot of the interviews that were done. And when I say parents, of course, I'm speaking of Katie and Chris Proudfoot, because that is where Sebastian was living. Seth.
Thousands of kids who run away are not autistic. That's not true. If you want to go and look at the actual statistics of how many autistic children actually run away, and then come back and modify your opinion, because that is absolutely not true. Autism is actually a risk. It's a risk factor for running away. So you're dead wrong. Absolutely dead wrong.
I keep saying Seth Proudfoot. I'm so sorry. Seth Rogers has been cleared. He's taken a polygraph. He wasn't in the area. And actually, according to law enforcement, Chris Proudfoot is in the same boat. So now we're looking just at Katie in terms of something that could have happened that night being.
Well, yeah, but she also passed a polygraph. So Jennifer, if you love polygraphs so much, Seth passed a polygraph and Chris passed a polygraph, therefore they're cleared. Well, no, they're cleared. And I use the word cleared loosely because it's not a legal term, because it's confirmed that they weren't in the area at the time. Yeah, don't over-egg the pudding. Don't put any eggs in the pudding. I'm vegan. Don't put any eggs in the pudding. Pudding's fine without eggs. Cakes are fine without eggs. Anyhow, but unfortunately, Katie's the one in the hot seat. And look, the cops will have looked at Katie very, very, very closely. Right, very closely, because they always do. The person who's last to see a child that goes missing, obviously, they're the first person that the cops look at. However, Jennifer, if you want to believe polygraphs, then she passed.
There and present. Right. It's what we do know is Sebastian Rogers was in the autistic spectrum.
Right.
And so with that being said, he can't be expected to act how others act, that it might just make no sense. I had a case like this. I've talked about it some. My very last case was a case where an individual who was on the spectrum walked away, and many of us felt his mother was responsible. She failed her polygraph. None of it made sense. She failed her polygraph, we came to find out, because she felt guilty that she had left the door open. She knew to lock all those locks on the door. She didn't, because she had a wanderer, someone who had the propensity to leave. She forgot to. So she felt very guilty about that. Anyway, he was found in a nearby waterway after some days. But we're not seeing that here from the standpoint of we have absolutely no proof of life, and we have absolutely no proof of death.
Yeah, we don't. We have nothing. We have nothing. And that obviously feeds the internet rumor mill. And in some ways, that's understandable, that people want to want to know what happened. And in the void that's left, you know, when law enforcement says we have nothing new, then rumours run riot. But in terms of, let's go back to polygraphs a minute. In terms of polygraphs, here's why I don't take much stock in polygraph results. Although they are maybe 80% accurate, 80% of times they can show that polygraph result was correct. Here's the thing. Like Jennifer said, that if you feel tragic, you know, so guilty, you truly believe it's your fault that your kid's gone missing, then you may well fail a poly because you feel so guilty about it. And in the case that Jennifer has described there, a mother who knew that her kid was a wanderer and she forgot to lock the door, of course she's going to feel wretched over that. Tyler Vaughan from the Michael Vaughan case was in exactly the same position. Michael went missing, 5-year-old Michael went missing on his watch. Like, Tyler was distracted, you know, they had a baby, the baby needed a diaper change. He went in the other room to change the baby, and when he came back, about 15 minutes had passed and Michael had gone. And Michael has never been seen since. And tragically, law enforcement believe he's been murdered. They believe he was abducted by some lowlifes down the road, and his body's never been recovered. And no charges have been brought as of this moment in time. Look, Tyler feels absolutely tragic over it. And anybody would. Because, you know, Michael got out of the house on his watch. But Michael lives in a very safe neighborhood. Not safe enough, obviously, but he failed 2 polygraphs. And why did he fail 2 polygraphs? The cops knew full well that the timeline, they knew full well that Tyler did not have enough time to murder Michael and then hide his body to such an extent. You know, he was such a criminal mastermind that he could do that in a 15-minute window. Because, you see, the thing is, neighbours saw Michael out on the street. And then 15 minutes after the last sighting, they saw Tyler on camera at the splash pad looking for Michael. So that 15-minute window meant cops knew, absolutely 100% knew, that Tyler Vaughan did not murder Michael. So the failed polygraphs meant nothing to them. But it's interesting that the family were not cleared. The cops in missing kid cases, even though they know the parents are not involved, they don't fully clear them. They say things like they've said in this case, they say the parents are cooperating. We've no reason to believe foul play has happened. We've no reason to believe the parents are involved, but they don't use the word cleared. You watch it. Watch missing child cases, and they don't use the word cleared for people who are close to that case. And you know, the cops knew full well. Like Brandy Neal and Tyler Vaughan, Michael Vaughan's parents, would stand with the cops at press conferences, and Chief Huff, the police chief of Fruitland Police, would hug Brandy and Tyler. It was obvious from, you know, the cops' body language that the family and them were working together. It was obvious that they were working with the cops, and the cops trusted them. The cops did not believe that they were involved, but they've never used the word cleared. So I think that this case is going to go very much the same way, that they're not going to say that the parents have been cleared, but they are going to keep saying that, you know, the parents are cooperating and there's no foul play and blah, blah, blah. They're going to use all the same words that they used in Michael's case in Idaho. But that's just my opinion.
He was never seen past the 25th. And when you look at that, it's very possible, and law enforcement has been clear, that there are no signs of foul play. My question, though, is, Pascal, did they do the proper investigation within the house in terms of, did they utilize luminol? Was that utilized at all? Any chemicals to determine substances in and around that house. I don't know the answer to that question. I have to just assume or hope that law enforcement did the proper protocols in their search.
Well, what we do know, I don't know whether they used luminol, but in doing things like, you know, that kind of forensic testing, they have to have a reason to believe that a crime occurred in that home. And if there's no evidence that a crime occurred in that home, then the searches of the house, you know, that come up blank, why would they do luminol? Because, look, they've had about 10 different searches of the home and the yard, and multiple dog teams. So they'll have dogs who are blood centers, dogs that are cadaver dogs, as part of those teams. So if those dogs don't alert, like the blood dogs, if they don't alert, then there's no reason to believe that a crime occurred involving blood. And look, you're more likely to murder your kid not by bludgeoning them to death or shooting them to death or stabbing them to death, although, you know, you've got cases like Letitia Stokes who did all of those things. All of those things. She used a gun, a knife, and a blunt force object. Letitia Stokes was an absolute monster. And they got, like in Letitia's case, because people keep saying that they see a similarity between Gannon Stokes' murder by his stepmother and Sebastian's case. And it's like, you don't know the details of either case. If you believe that they look similar, I don't know what planet you're living on, honestly, because within a couple of days, the cops knew Letitia was a problem. I mean, although, you know, they waited a while to arrest her, they were building a case. And we heard at the trial just how much they actually knew very, very early on. They knew everything. They knew everything very, very early on. I don't see any similarity between Katie Profoot and Susan Smith. I can't see that either. I just can't see it. I can't see it either. Yeah, the mad cleaning that Letitia did. I mean, it's just all insane. All insane. They knew exactly what she'd done. And they just built their case. And, you know, when the time came, they had all that evidence, and we had no idea. We had no idea. We knew some of what they knew, but you know, that trial was very eye-opening to me. But they knew very early on. But in Sebastian's case, no, they're not going to lie and say that they don't believe there's foul play. They're not going to lie about that. They're not going to lie.
No doubt. I mean, you know, one of the things I am kind of curious about, though, because, you know, I haven't had anybody on that's part of law enforcement or, you know, has seen investigations into a potential crime scene or to a scene at all. So I am happy that you're here to kind of break some of these things down for me and hopefully for the rest of the fam that's watching the show. One of the things I'm kind of curious about is, okay, he goes missing, right? He's reported missing. People come in, law enforcement of all kinds, dogs of all kinds come in, sniffing around, etc. Why wasn't that house just secured? Why wasn't it just shut down and saying, hey, no one in, no one out of this house? Even if they don't look at it as a crime scene, this is the last place that he was allegedly seen alive. So why wouldn't they just kind of, I don't know, conceal this house so that there isn't any manipulation, there isn't anything to kind of tarnish any potential evidence? I'm just kind of curious as to why they didn't look at the scene like a crime scene, since we haven't seen this kid in 80 plus days.
Right. It's a great question. Again,
another great question. She loves all these great questions.
I'm not sure we have the facts on this, whether it was shut down and whether it was treated like a crime scene What my understanding is, it has been searched, that house has been searched on multiple occasions, and the grounds as well as the camper, meaning the grounds, their yard areas were searched very thoroughly on multiple occasions. I don't know if it was shut down, meaning that no one was allowed in or out. That certainly should have been the protocol taken. And I don't have reason per se to know that it wasn't initially. But remember, there is a huge lapse of time between the time he was reported missing and the time he was last seen alive.
All right, well, we'll get to the time. We'll get to the time in a second. Look, as far as I understand it, the house wasn't shut down. Now, I don't know whether maybe his bedroom was. I don't know. We haven't heard. We haven't heard from the parents, any of the parents, that the house was shut down. What we heard on the dispatch audio was that all the like the teams who kept arriving, like throughout the morning of the 26th, you know, you've got the initial responders from Sumner County and, you know, the emergency services. And then there was state troopers who turned up. There was the US Marshals that turned up. There was the highways people that turned up. And the place that they were being directed to initially was Sebastian's house. So that seemed to be the initial hub of activity. Now, that doesn't mean to say that they had state troopers and US Marshals all tramping through the house. That was just their, you know, location. That was just their kind of meeting point. But what went on inside that house that morning, I do not know. Now, there probably was a like officers who would have sat with Katie, and they're not sitting there as a comforter. Believe me, they're not sitting there as a comforter, although they might sound like they are. They're there to gather as much information as they can. And that includes things like body language. It includes things like, you know, whispered conversations. It includes things that you wouldn't see unless you were just there observing. So they bring in, you know, the softly spoken police officers, the ones who are good at building a rapport, and they sit them there, probably drinking tea or something. Right? They sit them there and they keep the parents talking, and they just observe. That is 100% the first thing that they would have done with Katie Proudfoot. Before they get into, are you prepared to take a polygraph, or through any formal questioning, they have people there observing. That's what they do. That's what they do in my country, and I'm very sure that it's done in the US. If it's not done, then that's a problem. That's a bigger problem. That's way bigger problem than not doing luminol. All right, because they get that initial assessment of the parents and how they're behaving. Thank you, A to Z, for the $10. That's very kind. Love starting my mornings with your content. Thank you so much. You're very kind. You're very kind. And that would have been Katie. Also Seth, who turned up like an hour later. Chris's mother was there. Chris called his mother to go around before he arrived. And then Chris turned up in the afternoon. So each one of those people, they're observing the relationships. They're observing what they say. Behind the scenes, they would have had people working to confirm Seth's alibi. They would have had people working behind the scenes to confirm Kathy Bowersox's alibi, because she was there. And then later, Chris's alibi. So all of that stuff will have been filtered through the officers who were there drinking the tea and offering a shoulder to cry on. All of that stuff is filtered through to the other officers who are working away, confirming things like alibis. And then they get into, you know, can we see your phone? Can we extract data from your phone? Will you take a polygraph? All of those things are observed as well. Because if somebody is hesitant about giving their phone away. And, you know, once that phone is in the hands of law enforcement, they become very shifty. You know, their attitude changes, they become worried. Or if the mention of a polygraph worries them, because if you're completely innocent, you'd be like, yeah, let's get this done. You know, get me cleared, get me polygraphed, because you just need to be out looking for my kid. That kind of attitude is what law enforcement want to hear. They want people to be, yeah, look, just get whatever you need, anything, whatever you need. And they're looking for the sincerity of those words being said. So clearly there weren't any major red flags on that first day in relation to Katie, Seth and Chris. Or else, I would imagine, if there had been major concerns, if it was obvious after speaking to them, after looking at the, you know, the phones in, you know, an initial way, that there was a real problem here, then you better believe that house would have been shut down. You better believe it. You better believe it. But, you know, Gannon Stoke, they didn't shut the house down. They didn't need to. They don't. When it's a kid case or a missing person case, generally, they don't tend to shut a house down. Look at the cases. Look at the cases. In Gannon Stoke's case, they didn't need to shut that house down. Now, it was once they realised that a crime had most probably occurred in the home, then they did shut the house for a period of time while the forensic testing was being done. But in the initial stages, they didn't shut that house down. They didn't need to. Why? Because if somebody like Letitia Stoke had, you know, bludgeoned and shot and stabbed a child to death. I mean, look at the overkill there. Look at the absolute complete insanity of a crime scene that showed, right? And she cleaned that house. She cleaned that entire room. But they know that if a bloody crime had happened, if somebody stabbed to death or shot to death or bludgeoned to death, there's no way you're going to be able to clean that scene, you know, unless you've got the time to, let's say, take up the flooring, completely, you know, redecorate, you know, unless you've got the time to do that. Just cleaning it, just scrubbing it, you're not going to get all the blood spatter that can't be seen by the naked eye. You're not going to be able to get the blood that seeps through the floor. You're not. It might look clean to you. Also, what they're looking for when they come into a scene for the first time is they're smelling. They're looking for things like the smell of bleach. Because if there's a smell of bleach, then they're on the, you know, tenterhooks. They're, hold on a minute, somebody's cleaned using bleach. And why would you clean using bleach? You know, you've just reported your kid missing and your house smells very strongly of bleach. Now, you might just be OCD, and that's very possible. You might just be OCD and clean everything with bleach. Please don't. It's very toxic. But anyway, some people do that. These cops are not stupid. Come on now. These cops are not stupid. So once they realise that there is potentially a crime scene that happened in the home, then they will shut that house down. But they don't need to do it immediately, unless it's a break-in. If a child has been stolen, like there's obvious signs of a break-in and a child has been stolen, like abducted, then they'll shut the house down because they'll want to preserve things like foreign DNA from somebody who's come in through that window, fingerprints, that kind of thing. But when it's a child that's gone missing in the night, there's no immediate reason to shut that house down. The immediate response, the correct response, in my opinion, should be keep those parents there and talk to them and observe them. That's where you get all of the information. Ellie isn't stupid, but obviously untrained. That's not true. I don't know where you've got that from, CBC. They need special forensic help. If they have reason to believe that a crime has occurred, then forensics are all over it. Now, forensics did go in. I don't know whether they used luminol specifically, but they wouldn't have used luminol if there was no sign at all that any blood had been spilled. Actually, most children who are murdered are actually strangled or suffocated, which involves no blood whatsoever. I mean, look, if you want to murder someone in your home, please suffocate them. Because if you use blood, anything that involves bloodshed, doesn't matter how well you clean, you're gonna get caught. You're gonna get caught. Suffocating, you're not from the the forensics anyway. I'm just looking to see if there's any questions. Yes, spirit box sessions work. No, come on now. You do that to help victims. What kind of help can a spirit box session give you? Come on, please. Spirit box therapy. I'm a felony court reporter and think Sebastian was targeted online or normal looking predators that are everywhere. I believe that's a possible. That's my number 2 theory. That Sebastian has been abducted, but he was lured out of the house, like somebody saying that they're his friend. He was lured out of the house, and he was lured away from the house and then taken away in a car. That's very possible. But if there'll be a trail. If he was groomed by somebody online, there will be a trail that these like specialists like the FBI and the Secret Service will be able to track. So it's very possible. You're not supposed to give advice to murderers. You want them to get That's true. Yeah. Murder, stab them and shoot them and bludgeon them all at once. You'll never get caught if you do it that way. You'll never get caught. I can tell you for now, my stream has been demonetized. Yesterday's stream was demonetized. I've no idea why. I don't know what I said in yesterday's live stream that YouTube deems it a demonetization offense. I don't know. I didn't say anything bad. I have appealed the decision. May or may not be accepted. Anyway, I told you we're not going to get very far through this because I've got a lot to say.
And that amount of time, certainly a lot can happen.
Interesting. I got a super chat that I want to get before it just, gets overwhelming or anything of that stuff. Kate, thanks so much for it. Question to you, Jen. So are results for Poly given to a 2-person taking it same day? So good question, though.
Great question.
Did you find out? Because, for example, I know we're kind of going back to the embryostasis of this whole story, this whole case.
Embryostasis. I've never heard that term. Is that a real term? Embryostasis? If it's a real term, I'm going to use it because I like it. But I just never heard of it before. Or whether just Pascal's just made that up. It's a good word, though.
But, you had Chris Proudfoot, you had Katie Proudfoot out here saying they took Polly's, they passed with flying colors kind of thing. Would law enforcement tell them if they had a sufficient test result?
Yes. And I'll tell you also what happens is polygraphs are great investigative tools. In other words, I think
that's all they are. That's the only thing they are. They're an investigative tool.
A lot of people picture that you just walk into a room and they strap you up to all these cables and cords and That is what happens. And that's really not at all what happens. What happens is you're interviewed and you're given this whole series of questions, and it's meant to help ferret out somebody so they're not tempted to go and take a polygraph if they're intending to lie. So there's this whole pre-interview process that's used, with sort of hanging out in the background is the polygraph machine, right? That they're looking at. And typically, you know, people who have...
If you want a good example of how a polygraph works, go and watch the Chris Watts. Like, the entire polygraph was filmed, and it's available. Like, you just go and type in, if you've never actually seen one, go and type in Chris Watts polygraph and watch Agent Tammy Lee and Chris Watts on the polygraph, because it's the whole thing. It takes hours. The polygraph itself, the actual questions that are measured by the polygraph, very short, as she'll come on to talking about in a minute. But it's the whole process. It takes hours, like, and that's done on purpose. It's not just to calibrate the machine either when those initial questions are asked. Again, it's about watching that person. It's about psyching them out. So if somebody is guilty, the whole process will make them more and more and more nervous. And by the time they actually get to taking the polygraph, they're going to be so nervous, the chances of them passing when they are guilty are very much reduced, because they've been psyched out. It's been psyched out. So Tammy Lee was brilliant at it. Go and watch the Chris Watts polygraph. It's really good if you haven't seen it. It's an investigative tool, and the questions that they ask are really not about the polygraph. It's an interrogation. And then if they fail the polygraph and they've become like really shifty and it's obvious they're lying, like with Chris Watts, then they interrogate you. They keep you there and they interrogate you. It's a tool, and it's a good tool. It's a good tool to use. They're not used actually in things like interrogations in the UK. They are used though for parole officers use them for sex offenders. And again, it's an investigative tool. So those that, you know, sex offenders that are released out on license, out on parole, they have to come in and take polygraphs. And it's a tool. It's a good tool. But it doesn't mean to say that every result they get is accurate. It's about the psychology of it. The psychology of it is the important thing. So, and if they refuse to take a polygraph, then that's a red flag. Now, they might be refusing to take a polygraph because, you know, they say, look, there's no reason for me to take a polygraph. I'm completely innocent. I don't want to take one. Well, that's fine. They don't have to take one. It is voluntary, but it's a red flag for law enforcement. So there's that. You didn't care for Tammy Lee? Oh, I liked her. So Tammy Lee and Agent Coda, I thought they were really good. I've watched those interrogations so often. Thank you, Elle, for the $5. That's very kind. That's very kind of you. Seth says he's took 4 hours. He's took 4 hours. Yeah, that's about right. But it's the whole process. The actual polygraph itself is very quick. So yesterday was a big day for post office scandal. Lots of people watching that. Oh yeah, the dude used to have the post office in my village was arrested and went to prison for it. So I'm assuming he'll be cleared as well. It's weird that. Embryo stasis, unborn. Stop. Does Pascal mean abortion? Embryo stasis. Somebody else gave it. Here we go. Fly on the wall. Thank you. Embryo stasis. The usually temporary cessation of the production of eggs in some insects. All right. So maybe Pascal was using it in an inappropriate way. I don't know. It's a good word, though. I like it.
No concern in terms of telling the truth. Typically,
Mhm.
they're like, let's go. I know it's going to detect if I'm lying, and guess what? I'm not lying. And so you're going to see some very usual responses. Then after that, the process is explained and they're hooked up. And again, there can only be a couple of questions even asked. It's usually 2, maybe 3, and they're very pointed for a yes, no response. And everything is
Really?
calibrated. Oh, yeah. It's not a series of questions.
Okay, so it's not okay, because I understand that, like, for example, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but for example, Seth Rogers did a
Can what's being written in the chat cause you to be demonetized? I've heard that it can, but I just don't know.
polygraph, and the first time he did it, he started falling asleep during the poly. So and he said this on I think Nancy Grace, if I'm correct, and he had to do the polygraph again. Are they asking the questions really slowly? Like, how does that happen if they're only doing 3 questions and one falls asleep? I'm just curious about that. Any thoughts on that?
When you first start out and your question, of course, they're going to say, what's your name? Where you live. These are questions that are sort of benchmark questions that they can take your respirations, your pulse, your rate, and understand what they're dealing with in terms of somebody who's not under stress and not lying. What happens to the body when you fabricate a lie. So they do have to do the baseline.
Michelle, you were gifted by Elf. I did say thank you. Did I? Or did I just say it in my head? But Elf, if I just said thank you in my head, I do apologize. But thank you so much for the $5. Think you means embryo status, not stasis. All right. Okay.
But the questions that they are going to ask, there's only literally 2 or 3 that have to do with that case. And typically it's going to be, did you have anything to do with Sebastian's disappearance? Something like that.
Right.
Did you kill Sebastian? Something like that. Do you know where Sebastian is? Those would probably be 3 questions, at least those premises, that I would work with the polygrapher if I had this case to get to those pointed questions. So I don't know why he would fall asleep. I know and I'm not saying anything about the polygrapher that Nancy Grace used. I mean, if I were Seth, and obviously I've met Seth, I really appreciate him coming on and sharing his amazing story and his truth about his relationship with his son. Having said that, Pascal, the place for a polygraph is in a law enforcement environment, I believe, not on a show. And I think that just added to really all of this drama we're seeing and all of the sensationalizing of this case.
I do agree with that. I mean, not that Seth took the polygraph on the show. It was a qualified FBI polygrapher, allegedly, according to Nancy Grace. It wasn't on the show. But yeah, Nancy Grace is a sensationalist. The fact that Seth took a poly and then the results were released on her show. Yeah, it's a little bit of sensationalism. But Seth fell asleep because he was on medication. And it's not because the polygraph is quick and Seth just has some kind of narcolepsy. It's a long process. I bet that 4 hours that Seth said it took, it probably was. Because, a really good polygrapher will take their time and ask a lot of questions. And it's all part of the interrogation process. It's the psychology of it. That's what it is.
And it's really... so I don't know exactly the parameters they did, but I can tell you the parameters that we do in criminal cases. And as a person who got polygraphed every 3 years to keep my security clearances, top secret, highest levels, you have to be polygraphed at least every 3 years to hold those clearances, if not more. And so I'm very familiar with the process.
Very interesting. There's another part to this super chat that I want to get to too. Does law enforcement lie to third parties about results?
Thank you, Elle, for the $5. Did you see the video of Jennifer Coffindaffer taking pics at 30? Yes, I did. Absolutely hilarious. Yeah, she realized there was a Ring doorbell camera and she ran. Yeah, I did indeed. Hilarious. She's completely the opposite end of the spectrum to me regarding the Karen Reid case. There's no trial today for Karen. They're like part-time. Like they're having another day off. So no trial. So I'm not in a rush to finish this by 2 p.m. so I can watch the trial. However, I do have to finish by about 1:45 at the latest because I've got to go out for a couple of hours. And then I'll be back later to do a Delphi live stream. Wondering how home worth 700k, mom works for Brinks, no windows, door sensors for beeps. I don't know. I don't know why they don't have cameras. I think they may have a camera on the inside. It's just my speculation. I think they may have a camera on the inside, and that's why they know that Sebastian left on his own. I'm just speculating. Maybe Katie's a true sociopath and immune to lie detecting. Maybe, but I don't believe that. I don't believe she's a sociopath. I should do some recaps on the Karen Reid trade. I should do. But I don't know. I'd probably get banned from YouTube or something because they're just like, they're all lying. They're all just a bunch of lying tossers. They're all lying. And Mr. Lally is awful. He's such a bad lawyer. He's so boring. So boring. But I'm loving the defense. I'm loving them. They're brilliant. Yeah, AF Pennington, I agree with you. I can't believe that families of missing children in the US are not automatically given a family liaison officer as they are here in the UK. I agree. Like we have for any things like missing, high risk missing people. So if you're a vulnerable adult or you're a child, you're automatically allocated a family liaison officer. If it's a crime that involves a death, then you're automatically allocated a family liaison officer. Obviously, you can choose not to liaise with them if you want to, but they are very much part of the investigative process. So if they believe you've got something to do with it, you know, they're watching you. They're watching you. But yeah, it doesn't appear to be the same in the US. They do have victims advocates, but I don't know whether they automatically get offered one. I don't know whether the roles are the same as the family liaison structure here in the UK. But yeah, you're right. I've always thought that. The kind it's
to
very
keep
much
investigation quiet.
It's very much the same as a victim's advocate, but not, if you will, because the family liaison officers are police officers who are investigators on that case. They've like got a dual role. So if the family liaison officer picks up on, you know, things that you're saying because they've gained your trust, then they're going to turn on you quick smart. They're part of the investigation. Now, a victim's advocate, I don't know whether they're a police officer on the case or whether they're separate from the system. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. But it's absolutely the case that these families who come onto social media for help, I don't know. I don't know. They always end up getting burnt. Sadly, they get burnt. And you'd think there'd be some kind of structure. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be the case.
Like reporters.
So typically, I will tell you, I know a lot of people believe that law enforcement lies to get to an end. What law enforcement does is they just won't talk. That's typically what they do when they do not want to say yes or no to something, or they will give this statement, which I've seen constantly in this case. There's no proof that anything bad happened. Everybody is, you know, no one's been cleared per se, but we're investigating this as a missing person as if he walked away. So they've been very unclear, right? It's a soup sandwich in terms of us and the public being able to get really anything out of law enforcement in this case. But back to the question is, no, typically law enforcement will not lie about a polygraph result or anything like that. They'll typically say, listen, they passed. But what I wish we could see in this case.
Yeah, they're not going to like people think that the cops are lying. The people think that the cops are lying to the public to make the family feel comfortable, and then they'll slip up. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. The communication with the public is separate than any investigation that they might be doing on the parents. And the fact that the cops aren't speaking, well, they are speaking. They've just got nothing to say that would warrant a press conference. But they are speaking through Nick Barris, who seems to have a good relationship with Sumner County. So that's a good thing. They're coming out and dispelling some of the rumors through Nick Barris. So you have to, you have to take that for what it is, that there isn't anything, any developments that warrants them coming out and doing a press conference. So he wasn't a runner, but KP first thought was he ran. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Devil Doll. He wasn't a runner as in an eloper, but there's absolutely the proof, absolutely 100% the proof that he wandered about in that neighborhood. And why shouldn't he? He was 15. He was home alone. He was trusted to be home alone. He was trusted to cook his own meals. So the fact that he went wandering about in his neighborhood, I don't see anything wrong with that. So I don't know what else to tell you on that. Katie said Sebastian wasn't a runner, but he did like to run. What she meant was, again, people are so trying to find anything to make her guilty in your eyes. She meant he wasn't a runner as in he ran away. He's never run away before. But yeah, he liked to run. He liked to exercise. He was active. So the fact that he wandered about in his neighborhood, not unusual. Nothing strange about that. Good. He was getting exercise. What she meant was he's never run away before. An eloper. He's never eloped before. And what the cops are telling us is probably different than what they're telling the family. Well, not Seth, because they know Seth is a blabbermouth. So they're not telling Seth anything now because they're upset by the amount he's told. So Katie and Chris, I bet, have updates on the case that the public doesn't have. They're not required to tell the public anything. And it's not that because there's silence, there's going to be an arrest. No, it doesn't mean that at all. Could it mean? Yeah, it could mean that. But it doesn't mean that because they're silent, that's what's going to happen. They are continuing to update via Nick Barris. If you listen to the beginning of this live stream, I read out the latest post by Nick Barris, and they're coming out to Nick Barris dispelling the myths and the nonsense and telling people don't believe what's being said on social media. We have no new updates. That's not a lie. That's the truth. They're not going to come out and lie. Thank you, CBC, for the $4.99. That's very kind. Thank you so much. Respectfully disagree. Wow, police use lies all the time as investigative techniques. They are allowed to lie. It's openly discussed in court. Yeah, they're allowed to lie to suspects, but they're not going to come out to the entire public and lie. They're not going to tell an out-and-out lie. When they're asked a question that they don't want to comment on, they will say no comment. When they have information that is, key to that investigation, then of course they're not going to talk about it. And they may even deflect somewhat, but it's not an out-and-out lie. So they'll use deflection, but they're not gonna out-and-out lie to the public. They're not. So when they say we have no new developments, it really means they have no new developments. They wouldn't say that. They don't need to say that if it's not true. What they would say, if they were close to an arrest, what they would likely say is something like, you know, all of these rumors are false. We continue to work on the case, and then just leave out anything like we have no new developments. They're just going to deflect away from that. They're just not going to mention it. So no, when they say they have no new developments, it actually means they have no new developments. Does that mean that there isn't going to be development? No, because none of us, including the cops, can see into the future. You know, today there might be the tip that breaks the case, and then suddenly there's a whole bunch of new developments. But does it mean to say because they said there was no new developments yesterday that they were lying? No. It meant that yesterday they had no new developments. Today, they may well get the tip that breaks the case. So I hope that makes sense. Elf, thank you so much for the gifted membership. And Kay, welcome. You get a month's free membership courtesy of Elf. Thank you so much, Elf. That's very kind of you. Very generous.
Is what we saw in the Brian Kohberger case. In that case, law enforcement came out every week with a list of cleared individuals. And they added to it each week. Jacks are cleared. Jack is cleared. You know, the DoorDash guy is cleared. They cleared
two surviving roommates
Ubers.
are cleared.
Yes, they cleared people as they passed polygraphs. So they didn't discuss about polygraphs, but it's all about the whole picture, right? So likely passing polygraphs along with alibis, along with the totality of what they saw from digital information, cleared them.
Yeah, look, they did. It's unusual. I like the fact that they did say, you know, we are not. I don't know that they used the word cleared. I don't recall them using the word cleared. However, they made it very abundantly clear, whichever wording they used, that there were certain people that were not on their list, that were taken off the suspect list very early on. And they did, and it wasn't just a weekly basis. At one point, very early in the Kohberger case, it was almost daily that they were either giving a press conference or a press release to say, this person's no longer in our interest. This person's no longer in our interest. This person's no longer in our interest. The reason why they were able to do that, though, is because there were lots of movement behind the scenes. Again, we had no idea of all the work that they'd done until Kohberger was arrested and the probable cause affidavit came out. And then we realized that in a few short weeks, because remember, that crime occurred on the 13th of November and Kohberger was arrested on I think it was the 30th of December. So it was only about 6 weeks. And they had Kohberger in cuffs. The reason being, they had phone evidence, they had surveillance video, they had DNA. So they knew like the way that the direction of that investigation was going. And they knew that the direction of that investigation very quickly led them away from the house. So they were very quickly able to clear, for the want of a better word, their roommates, their boyfriends, I don't know, whoever else, the DoorDash driver, the people at the food truck. They were able to clear all those people because there was surveillance video right outside the door of 1122 King Road. The house right on the corner had surveillance. The apartments just a bit further up the hill had surveillance. They were able to see actually who turned up. They were able to see it. Completely different. So I'm really glad that they were very transparent, and it did. I was going to say it did dispel some myths, but it absolutely didn't. Just because they said the jacks are cleared or the roommates are cleared, it's still to this day the roommates are suspects according to people on social media. So the cops did what they could, but it was a very different case because, unbeknownst to us, they had a bulk of evidence. In this case, they have nothing. They have no surveillance video. They have no DNA. They have nothing. They have nothing. They have a dog track that leads them to the construction site, and that's it. So they can't clear anyone, and until they get the D-tip that breaks the case, or they find Sebastian, they have to say, we have no new information, and that's not a lie. That's not a lie. But Coffindaffer, once again, has missed the point because it's a very different kind of case. She's missed the point colossally here because that's what she does.
Love to see that here. Because we are not seeing that here, to me, it does point to the direction of they are still being considered.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we cannot, and I've said this from the beginning, Pascal, we cannot jump on Katie Proudfoot killing Sebastian. We just can't do that.
No, that's
I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Blissful, thank you so much for gifting a membership. That's very kind of you. The Real Sunflower, welcome. You get a month's free membership, courtesy of Blissful Nessence. Thank you. You're so kind. I do love these gifted memberships. It's great. You know, because I get them. Well, I get 70%, and YouTube gets 30%. But then a whole person gets a membership, so it's good. It's good. It's one of the few YouTube updates that I actually like.
very true. That's very true. Well, I agree. I hear you on that. I do think that there's a lot of things. I use this analogy a lot. There's a lot of things on the table. And I think that's one of the options that's on the table. I don't think it's the main thing, but it's on the table. You see what I'm saying? It could have been he lashed out, ran out the door. He could have been punished, and she closed the door on him and said, you know, if you're going to keep acting out like this, you can stay outside. And she shut the door. And then when she walked back out there, he was gone. You know, the options in this.
Yeah, I mean, that is possible. I know is it Peter Hyatt that has that theory? I'm not sure that's how it went down. Like, if she locked him out and then he ran away, why wouldn't she just say he was outside and then he ran away? You know, we had an argument and I shut the door on him and I thought he was outside, and then when I went back to check, he wasn't. Why wouldn't you just say that? Because it's not a crime. It's not a crime to put your kid outside to tell them to calm down. So yeah, she would just say he was outside. She might not even say there was an argument. She might say, the last time I saw him, he was outside. He likes to go outside. He was in the yard. You know, I'd say something like, he was outside in the yards taking the dogs out. You know, I might not mention an argument because you know, you think, oh, maybe they'll think I'm a suspect if I say we had an argument. But I'd say, look, I saw him outside. He was taking the dogs out because they got 2 dogs, so that's a, you know. And then I went back in, and then when I went back out, he'd gone. Why wouldn't you just say that? Why would you lie to an extent that you'd tell a whole different story? And then if Sebastian really was locked out, well, he'd either hammer the door down and the neighbours would have heard a commotion, which nobody heard anything, or he'd have just sat there waiting to be let back in. And why would he run off if he was locked out? Maybe he would just go for a walk if he was locked out and someone abducted him, or he fell down a ravine. I mean, it's all possible. It's all possible. I just don't think it went down like that because there's no reason for Katie to have lied about that. Susan, thank you so much for the $4.99. Thank you so much for the tulips and the hearts. I like tulips. They're one of my favourite flowers. Thought they said they didn't have cameras, but have had them installed now. Well, they may well have had them installed now because of all of the idiots who keep going to their house. But I'm not convinced. I think they may have had a camera inside. I think maybe.
Situation are endless because we don't have anything, right? This kid literally, as Seth said one time, this kid literally like used the force almost and just levitated out the house, leaving no trail of anything, which is so.
But what trail would he have left? I mean, he left a scent trail that the dogs picked up on. So we do know that he left the house. We know what direction he went in, and we know that that trail ended at the construction site. But what else would there be? I mean, he didn't take anything with him, so it's not like he had a backpack with food in, and maybe they find a bottle and they DNA test the bottle and it's got Sebastian's DNA on it. He didn't take anything with him. So the only things that they'd possibly find that could come off his person would be his glasses and the flashlight. Those are the things that are not actually connected to him. What else would there be? There's nothing else that would leave a trail. So yeah, it's not like somebody's gonna. Yeah, it's not like he left breadcrumbs, is it? Or signs like a treasure hunt. So no, there's no trail that the humans can see. There's a trail that the dogs could see, but then the dogs went off in one direction, got to the construction site, and then lost the trail. So that's not even helpful. We know he went to the construction site. So where did he go from there? That's the $10 million question. Did he get in a car? So it's an abduction scenario. Or did he go into the woods and get lost and fell down a ravine like Bryn Hargreaves? Jennifer isn't the brightest crayon. No, she's not. I mean, it's interesting that she's an ex-FBI agent. I don't know why she left the force. I mean, maybe she... I don't know. I don't know why she left. I don't know. Katie's car. Why would Katie's car? No, it's not Katie's car. I'll let you decide why it's not Katie's car. It's not Katie's car. Yeah, there's 4 dogs that followed the same track. So go and watch my many videos that I've done on the search dogs. I've done loads of videos on the search dogs. And a couple of days ago, I did a very detailed live stream, went through all the dispatch audio, which I've played previously, but I went through it all again. We did measurements, everything. So go and check out that live stream from a couple of days ago.
Very odd. Now, okay, and this goes back to what we were talking about with FBI and all that, and it goes back to this video I just played where Seth is expressing his concerns about this becoming a cold case. What can be done to prevent it from becoming a cold case right now?
It's nowhere near a cold case, but yeah, why can't people believe he just ran away? I don't know, because it's not salacious enough. It's not. It doesn't generate interest. It's exactly like they couldn't believe that Nicola Bulley fell in a river because it's not salacious enough. You've got to imagine all these intricate scenarios to keep the content flowing. There's money in it. And then people just love it. They love it. They lap it up. Was it Michelle the other day that mentioned tar pits being in the area? I've not mentioned tar pits specifically, but I've talked about ravines, holes, caves, collapsed caves. We do know they are all in the area. I don't know that there's tar pits, though. If anybody who's local knows if there is, I mean, did someone else just run away? I'm after nearly 3 years and absolutely no movement on that case, I've kind of reached the conclusion that someone just wandered away. So yeah, no tar pits, says the girl next door. So no tar pits. They still don't believe it about Nicola. I know I don't see any of it now because I've got all the YouTube channels that have talked nonsense about it blocked. I've got all the Twitter accounts blocked, so I don't see any of that nonsense anymore. But yeah, people just don't want to believe that horrible things happen to people and there's absolutely no crime. Accidents happen more often than crime does. And if somebody goes for a walk in the woods and has a terrible accident, then people want to make it all salacious. So ravines, caves, rivers, creeks. Yeah, absolutely. AF. Nikki's case was disgusting. Yeah, it's absolutely dreadful. Didn't Nicola drown? She did indeed. I've got loads of videos of Nicola. I went to the scene. I showed you the rocks at the bottom where she fell in. But people just can't believe it. Can't believe it.
Well, I think to have a reasonable discussion about a case going to a cold case, we have to understand the definition of a cold case.
No, it wasn't 30 degrees. No, it was 55. The night Sebastian went missing, the lowest temperature was 55 degrees.
What is a cold case? A cold case is a case that is not being actively worked. It's something that's sitting back on the shelf. It's Summer Wells is the perfect example of a cold case. No one is actively working it, meaning a guy or a detective isn't getting up every morning and investigating, not,
So I don't think the method solves Summer. I don't anymore, no. I used to. I thought Summer had been solved for a long time. That was my number one theory. But I think either the criminal geniuses and they've got away with it, or it didn't happen.
Interviewing, not searching, not looking at records. They're not actively investigating. So by definition, a cold case, no one is actively working. And that's what Seth is worried about. I think we're far from that at this time with Sebastian. I would be worried too as a parent, but we're far away from that, I believe, at this point, because people are still searching, not law enforcement per se, but other people that are going to find clues. And I think law enforcement is still actively searching and probably continuing to look hard at Katie Proudfoot.
She has to get that in, doesn't she? She has to get that in. I think they are. They're looking at all options. I think probably 3 months down the line, and if they've absolutely nothing on Katie by this time, then they've nothing on Katie. And my feeling is that they're still under the impression that he walked away of his own volition. I don't think they've got any more information than they had on the 29th of February. Now, in yesterday's live stream, I played that very, very detailed press conference they did on the 29th of February. And I don't think that they've moved forward in terms of their thought process. I think they've probably done a lot of investigation to rule out a lot of different theories, but I don't think they've reached a different conclusion at this point. Having said that, like I said, if a tip comes in today or tomorrow or the next day that leads them away from he ran away or he just walked away and something horrible happened to him, then that will break the case wide open and it will take them on a different journey. But at the same time, let's not be under any impression that if Sebastian did just wander away on his own and he's had a terrible accident, then that tip is never going to come in because there's nothing to, no sighting that's going to, find him. That tip's not going to come in. What it will take, like Bryn Hargreaves, it will take somebody just coming across his remains, sadly, however horrible that is. And that's why I'm so pleased and thankful that there's people like Chloe and her team and Julia who are prepared to go out and actually look in a coordinated way. Thank you so much, CBC, for the $1.99. That's very kind of you. If a man came from KP's background, what would I think? I think exactly the same as I do. I don't think Katie's gender has got anything to do with the way that I think about her. She's had a bad start in life. She's had a traumatic past, and I feel sympathy for that. I don't think it leads me into any thought process that she might have harmed Sebastian. And if she was male and she'd come from a traumatic past, I'd think exactly the same thing, that I'd have sympathy with that person, but it wouldn't lead me to think that they'd done something horrible to their kid. But thank you for the 199, and I hope that answers. All right, I'm going to have to shoot off because I've got to go out. And I did say that I was going to end this by 1:45, and I am going to try. I'll have to rush to get ready. Not that it takes me very long to get ready. It literally takes me like 2 seconds. But I do have to go out for a couple of hours. But I am going to be back later to talk about the Delphi case. So I may do a part 2 on this tomorrow, because there's still some more interesting things to talk about. Or I may not. I may just move on. But this is well worth the listen. It's well worth the listen. But Sebastian's case is not cold by any means. But I think we do need to be careful. We do need to be careful. You're missing the trial. I'm not missing the trial. There's no trial on today. They're having a day off. They're back on Friday. It's the part-time. The part-time. So no Karen Reid today. So I'm going to be back later. Probably 6 o'clock or 6:30 my time. So that'll be like 4 to 4.5 hours. I'm going to be back talking about Delphi. I want to go through the motion that the defence has put together, trying to get Frances to recuse herself. It's Memorial Day weekend, is it? Happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody who is... well, if it's Memorial Day weekend, why are they working Friday? So why do they have today off but not tomorrow? That doesn't make sense. Thank you, Blissful, for the gifted membership. That's very kind of you. And Tree Hugger, congratulations. You get a month's free membership, courtesy of Blissful. Yeah, no trial till tomorrow. But they are doing a full day tomorrow, I think. So hope they don't get too tired. Yeah, it's 1:47 p.m. here in the UK. So I've got to be out the house by 2. Or else I'm going to be late. Memorial Day is Monday. So they're going to be off on Monday as well. Is that what you're telling me? You're going to be off on Monday as well. Oh, dear. They're part-time. And these half days, what's all that about? I've never seen a court case do half days before. Unless Judge Bev has got other commitments, maybe. Maybe she does like hearings and stuff on those days. It's just weird. I just find it weird. Yeah, exactly, Vi. Where's Ronnie Lawson with that update? We haven't forgotten. Yeah, he did say last year, on the 15th of June, last year, he said that there will be an update soon. And we're now the 23rd of May of the next year. Where is it? Where's the update on Summer Wells? She could have a hair appointment. Yeah, could have. Could have. There's a rapper on trial in California that's been going on for months. Oh, I don't know anything about that. You don't know how much you've done for myself and others who have a tendency for rabbit holes. I do love a good rabbit hole, though. There's nothing wrong with a good rabbit hole. You just have to make sure you can find your way out at the end. You knee deep in Daybell. I'm not watching that trial, honestly. I'm not. The reason being is he's guilty, and there's nothing exciting about it. You know, he's guilty. That's it. He just needs to accept his punishment, and they just need to, fire up Paul Sparky and get rid of him. Thoughts on Celebrite? I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that data when that's shown. But 227 for Jen McCabe. I've got a video, actually. Let me find it. I think it was on... think it was on Michelle Walks. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Did a little video. John O'Keefe death. Proof Jen McCabe's Google search was at 2:27. Don't think you can see it, can you? Hold on a minute. There. It's on Michelle Walks from 7 months ago. So proof Jen McCabe's Google search was at 2:27. So she's going to say that because she had a window open on her phone, that the 2:27 search was actually at 6:20 something, but she used an open window. Nonsense. Absolute balderdash. That is a lie. And it's very, very easy to prove it yourself on your own phone. So she's lying. And those are dog bites. Those are dog bites on John's arm. And you got to prove me otherwise. You got to prove me otherwise. All right. Karen is innocent. Free Karen Reid. Momo Shark, thank you so much for the $4.99. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Anyway, all right, gonna go. Got to go, in fact. Don't want to go. I'm enjoying this, but I've got to go. But I will be back later for Delphi. So thank you all for joining me. Hope you can join me later. It will be on this channel because I'm taking full use of the month on StreamYard that I've had to pay for because I've streamed so much this month. I've run out of 3 hours. So it will be on this channel later. I've got 3 hours on Michelle Walks still, but man, I've paid for it. Anyhow, oh, that's interesting. There's that little sign from Tree Hugger. How have you managed to do that? Like, how's it like come up green like that? That's really weird. That's interesting. All right, gotta go. I'm now running well late. Gotta go. See you about 6 to 6:30, something like that. I'll put the schedule up later. Delphi and the motion for Judge Frances Siegel to recuse herself. Thank you all. Thank you to the mods. Thank you for the donations. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you soon. Later. Bye, guys.